This week, Hallmark continued with their Winter Escape series with the premiere of Polar Opposites on January 11th, which means this is another week of international travel. Although this time, it's not for a fun vacation. It's more of a rescue mission. But a rescue mission for whom? Well, one could argue that that's where the story gets fun. Others might say just the opposite. You see, the two halves of the movie are quite different. In this one, Rhiannon plays Emma, a courtroom artist who's down on her luck and love.
Not even a hey, couldn't make it, or gee, something came up. Oh.
No surprises there. Her dad is a researcher studying penguins in Antarctica. Now, she knows nothing about Antarctica, except that she gets a mysterious phone call from her dad, and because the connection cuts in and out, she thinks that he's in serious trouble, and she drops everything to go find him. Only she finds out it's not so easy to do.
It can't be that much paperwork.
Literally, half the movie feels like a situation comedy as she travels a little unconventionally to this remote part of the world.
We met before, Miss Rivers?
No, I don't believe so. Well,
the other half is a rescue mission, but not necessarily the kind Emma was expecting.
Something like this?
And of course, there's love to be found too. Come to think of it, there's a lot to unpack with this one. See what I did there? So, what's it really all about? Well, let's dive right in and get started. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and welcome to the Magical Movie Club. Today we're talking about Polar Opposites starring Rhiannon. Let's see, the movie opens in Antarctica. Well, if we're being picky, these scenes were actually filmed in Argentina, but for purposes of the movie, let's say it's Antarctica. Ian is a researcher who spends days at a time just sitting and studying the penguins down here.
I see you on.
He knows them so well he's given them all names. But in these opening scenes, something happens to one of them he calls Lola.
No.
And then we pan over to Emma, his daughter. She's sitting in a restaurant waiting for a date to show up and has apparently just been stood up.
He blocked me.
But that's not the worst of her worries. She's about to get a call from her dad. The signal kept breaking up though, so all she heard were words like all alone, danger, killer whales.
In real danger out there. Killer whales.
Wait, did you say danger?
Naturally, she panics, but what happens next? Well, maybe you should decide if this was a good idea.
No, his satellite phone isn't connecting and nobody's seen him for weeks.
Let's talk about what we know.
That man is obsessed with his penguins.
Okay, yeah, we know that. We know that there's a base down there in Antarctica. We know that they haven't heard from him in weeks, and we know that his phone isn't working, so even the base can't communicate with him. We find out a little later, though, that that's not unusual for him. What we don't know is anyone at the base even looking for him yet? That's a significant point for me because we're also going to find out that it will take Emma 10 days to get there on her own.
10 days?
So why isn't she on the phone with the base every single day asking for an update? Now, I realize this had to happen this way for the sake of the movie because, as I mentioned before, literally half the movie is about her journey to get there. Well, she discovers there's another research team heading to Antarctica from Buenos Aires tomorrow.
A team is leaving from Buenos Aires. Ooh, on a cruise ship, fancy.
And yes, besides getting a ticket to go, there's apparently one more minor detail that she's missing.
I'm sorry, even with a ticket, we still require a permit.
So, as determined as she is to get on board that ship, she does what you'd expect from any situation comedy at this point. She pretends to be an engineer and sneaks on board with the research team.
You're a stowaway.
Of course, now she's breaking some laws, and she has no cabin to stay in, so for the time being, she hides away in a supply closet. She also has to be sneaky about getting food because the chief officer has already turned her away and would recognize her again if she saw her on board. And she has no ticket or permit to be there either. That was not exactly graceful, but understandable nonetheless. The problem is, on her way back to hiding in the closet with her food, she runs into Andy again. Oh, I didn't show this earlier, but he saw her sneaking on board the ship earlier, so he already thinks that she's an engineer on his research team.
We missed you at dinner. We got invited to the captain's table.
Even though she tells him here that she's not?
No, I'm an illustrator of blueprints.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he thought she could do this.
You gotta make sure these are really straight, like that. See, this one's wiggly.
But she didn't keep up the ruse for too long before she snuck out and was on the run again. And this time, she got caught.
Either you had permission or you don't.
And Andy was mad.
We're talking bans, fines, arrest.
So she sweet-talked him into keeping her secret.
I don't think she'd be too thrilled to learn that I got on board under your watch.
No? No, that wasn't sweet-talking at all. But she convinced him to go along with it nonetheless.
Okay, fine.
Now this next scene is one that I personally had hoped to avoid, and that is anything about her character that could possibly be reminiscent of her character in A Costa Rican Wedding.
Ladies, this is gonna be a blast. You can trust me.
I'm sorry to say that that was one of the most unbelievable characters I've ever seen in a Hallmark romance movie. What happened this time is Andy took her back to his cabin to hide her away from getting caught by Ingrid.
No, I can't stay stuck in here.
Okay, so she has no problem risking Andy's whole career. Isn't that nice? And yet somehow he's okay with taking her with him onto the bridge, so long as she's wearing a uniform.
I was just wondering if you could help me out with a little thing.
Hello.
Just have-
Hi. Excuse me. Sorry.
In the next scene, we're introduced to Peg. I believe she's in charge of the team stationed at the base.
But don't worry, I'll send someone out to check on him right away.
Okay, great. Now we know that Peg knows that Ian's in trouble, and she's finally sending someone out to check on him. So things are looking up now. Emma seems to be staying in Andy's room now, and we get to see, well, a cute little montage of what I would assume is the two of them connecting over the next few days. For example, he brought food up to her, they played games, they talked, they laughed, played rock, paper, scissors for the bed. I actually liked this. It looked fun. But then she got cabin fever and had to get out.
No, I can't.
I know, I suppose we wouldn't have much of a movie if she had just stayed inside, would we? No, she decides to try to blend in and, shall we say, hide in plain sight.
I will find it, don't worry. And when I do, I will leave it with the concierge.
Thank you.
Yeah, that plan didn't work out so well.
Wait! I just want to talk to you!
Did I mention that half this movie was spent on the ship trying to get to Antarctica?
We may have a stowaway.
What? What makes you say that?
Yeah, there's more, but if I'm being honest, I was getting a little bored by this point, so I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Although, isn't it interesting how they put full communication panels inside of supply rooms like this?
Will passenger Marmaduke?
So they finally arrive in Antarctica,
Just promise me you'll be careful.
I promise.
and she meets Peg, who's really nice, by the way.
Keep my presence on the down low, that would be great.
Okay.
And since 2 research crews have been unable to locate her dad,
But we sent 2 crews out for him, and both times he wasn't in his cabin.
well, what does Emma do? She hops on a snowmobile, which she confesses she's never driven before, to go search for him on her own in Antarctica, which she's never been to before.
Because you've never been here before?
I've never been a stowaway before, and I managed that.
Yeah, she is not really bright. Fortunately, Andy has a soft spot for her.
Let me go with you.
And to think, all they had to do was go to his cabin, and miraculously he showed up.
It's my dad. Dad! Dad!
Emma?
Okay, so Ian's okay, and that's obviously great news. But then what was that call all about?
It seems that we had a little broken telephone going on.
He was obviously quite distressed about something, so much so that he worried Emma enough to go rescue him. Well, we're only about halfway through the movie now, so this is where the focus pivots just a little bit.
Because I'm not the one that needs help.
A penguin?
Yes, a penguin. Okay, so the deal is this one penguin, Ian named her Lola, was sitting on an ice shelf that broke apart from the mainland, so she's separated from her colony. The waters are too dangerous for her to swim back, or she'll quickly become whale food. And the task now is to find a way to rescue her and get her back to the rest of the colony, and to Hugo, her mate.
That guy right there, that's Hugo. He searches the colony for her every day.
Now, notice Ian was able to attach these tethers to the iceberg. They keep it from drifting further away, but he can't use them to pull it any closer.
Can't you use the tethers to pull it in?
I've tried, but when I do, it tips.
So the rest of the movie is somewhat of a joint effort to save Lola. And I'll even admit that the love story that developed between Emma and Adam wasn't bad from this point on. Although, I will say Rhiannon Fish seriously overacts in some of these scenes. I lost count of the number of times that her eyes welled up with tears.
Don't worry, Lola. I know how hard he was to find.
As I'm sure you already know, they do successfully rescue Lola, and everyone has their happy ending. I'm not going to give away the details on how they saved the penguin, but I do have a couple of questions that they never addressed. For one, early on, Adam had asked Ian if they could get a boat over to her.
What about a boat? Could push the flow back to the ice cap.
Not in those waters.
But then a little while later, here we have Adam and Emma in a boat heading over to Lola. And then something else that I thought of was, if Ian could get a tether across the water, why not a makeshift bridge so that Lola could just walk over? But no one else ever asked that question. Also, did anyone else notice that Emma never wore any kind of a cap or a beanie to keep her head warm? I usually expect Hallmark to pay attention to some of those details. I'm just thinking that earmuffs in the Antarctic wouldn't quite cut it, especially when they got caught in a storm.
I used to be scared of storms.
Oh, and in another scene, I was noticing that she took her glove off here while she was sketching. Maybe that's not a big deal, but somehow it didn't look right to me. And don't even get me started on this polar plunge bit.
1, 2, 3.
I keep asking myself, should I try to let it all go because it's just a movie? Or if I'm being distracted by these details, is that taking away from the value of the overall movie? Well, I will try. So let's get back to the story, shall we? Moving along. There's a scene where they get caught in a storm near the end, which means the conflict is coming. Remember, Emma was a stowaway and she's in the Antarctic with no permit? Yeah, that's going to come back around again.
Hello, Ricky.
And this is where I'm going to ask you your opinion. Do you like the way that this was resolved in the end?
Now you and your partner are both in trouble.
I mean, Emma broke more than one law to be here. And the whole time, her reasoning had been to find her father.
It's the law, so no, I'd be risking my job and your safety if I allowed it.
That was never enough for the chief officer to bend the rules for her. But as soon as she turned on the waterworks here
That is only because he has got one of the biggest hearts.
and told her about the penguin's love story, well, what did you think?
And since she's been gone, he hasn't been chatting it up with other penguins. He's been waiting for her.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love that they saved the penguin.
It worked!
But was that now suddenly worth allowing her to stow away on the ship and breaking all those laws when saving her father wasn't?
But finding your penguin is more important than the rules.
Well, I will say the final scenes a few months later with the baby penguin were super cute.
Don't worry.
I don't even care if the penguin footage was all green screened in. They were adorable. And actually, I kind of liked Andy and Emma together, which is unusual for me because I don't typically care for scatterbrained characters, and she was. No question about that.
Wait, you're not wearing any
Shoes.
But was this enough for me to give this movie a decent rating? Well, before I can answer that, I need to ask some more questions. Like, was there any character development? On the part of Emma? Well, her life changed for the better as a result of that disconnected phone call from her dad.
Hi, Dad. How's life on the ice cap?
And if she hadn't gotten that call, she never would have stowed away on that ship and ultimately met Andy and fallen in love. But did her character evolve in any way? Possibly. And this is where it may be a little different from some of the other movies. In the beginning, Emma was impulsive and never thought about the consequences of her actions in terms of how they might impact others.
See? I'll figure it out.
For example, when she decided to sneak on board the ship, she didn't think about anyone but herself. She put Andy's and Ingrid's careers at risk without blinking an eye. And later, Ingrid points out it could have been worse.
Everyone's safety on board, and I can't do that if I don't even know you are there.
The question is, did Emma finally understand that here?
I didn't think of it like that. I just thought I'd get into trouble.
I shouldn't be at all surprised, though. Her father was exactly the same way, and I didn't like the fact that he actually laughed when she showed up. Like,
You scared me. Don't laugh, it's not funny.
what she and all the others went through to find him were no big deal. Yeah, I didn't care much for his character. Overall, I found it to be just a little bit too unbelievable, so it's maybe a 2 at the most. Let me tell you, I've tried giving Rhiannon Fish a solid chance in 3 different movies this past year, but I just can't get on board with the types of impulsive, scatterbrained, and sometimes over-dramatic characters that she portrays. But that's just me. I know she has a solid following, and as much as Hallmark has a reputation for churning out movies that are all too similar, I would argue that their talent pool makes them just different enough to appeal to our unique likes and perspectives. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is obviously my own opinion, but I completely understand if you happen to love watching her. Maybe you find her refreshing and fun. Well, I think that wraps up my review of Polar Opposites. As always, feel free to share your own thoughts about the movie in the comments below. Next week, I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days, so I'm trying to plan ahead, and I may be posting a review of a Christmas classic. I'm trying to build up some inventory, so to speak, so that I can stay consistent with new videos every week, regardless of my personal schedule. So if you like this and are interested in seeing more, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel so that you'll be alerted when the next video comes out. As always, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to next week where we'll chat more about our favorite magical movies.
It's incredible.
I could be biased,